If you do not schedule quality time with your family, it's not going to happen. We're all busy. We're all getting trampled over. You might not be able to get the babysitter. They might have this sport or this happening. You got to schedule the time with your spouse, with your children. And when you schedule it, the odds of success go up just tremendously.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. I have an exciting show for you today. Actually, a few segments with this guest that are incredible. I mean, we've already recorded them, so I already know what they're going to be, right? So I'm thankful that you are with us today. I hope this transforms the way you think about your family, your children, and how that relates to your business as well. It's a topic that I love talking about. It's important to me. I hope it's important to you, but it's not talked about often, not often enough. And too often do I see entrepreneurs with families that are a wreck. They may seem so successful on the outside, right? Their business is doing so well. They're closing so many deals, whatever. They may have bought their second vacation home, but their family is paying the ultimate price. And Jim Sheils is our guest today. He is a general partner of SI Asset Management, a firm that focuses on private fund offerings for accredited investors, highly profitable build-to-rent sector. He's one of the largest build-to-rent owner-operators, probably in the Southeast. And he also runs Jack's Wealth Investments, a private real estate investment firm that has executed over $400 million in transactions. He is known as the crazy glue for entrepreneur families. His popular board meeting strategy, which we're going to talk about in depth over the next few segments, and other simple frameworks are helping thousands of business leaders worldwide to reconnect where it counts the most, and that's at home. His firm, 18 Summers, specializes in retreats, workshops, and private consulting for entrepreneurs looking to strengthen their family lives while still succeeding in business. I want you to think about who Jim is now. He is a very successful entrepreneur. He's lived it, he's done it, and he's going to share many things with you today. And over the next couple of days, actually, that's helped him to transform his life, his family life, and his relationships with his children and his spouse. He's going to lay out some family rhythms that are going to change the way you operate, and it's going to change your family for the rest of your life. And I make an offer during this podcast as well, during this recording, that I want to give you his book. It's a very short read, and it will be the most worthwhile read you will probably have. It's called The Family Board Meeting. If you'll email us, info@LifeBridge Capital, and put in the subject line, Family Board Meeting, send us your address. We'll send you this book for free. I want to buy it for you because I believe in just these simple concepts and how they're going to transform your relationship, but transform your child the rest of their life. I know you're going to enjoy this interview with Jim. And please stick around to the end. We'd love a rating and written review. Jim, welcome to the show. I was honored to meet you at a conference we were at together not too long ago. And since then, a lot's happened in my family and actually other people's families in our team and friends of mine as well. So I know the listeners are going to learn a lot. And I feel like this is a topic that's near and dear to your heart, to mine. And it's one that's not talked about often, but you've become an expert in this and helping so many people do this well and be intentional with building those family relationships. But before we dive into some of that, again, welcome to the show. Honored to have you on. Tell the listeners, who is Jim Sheils? And let's dive in a little bit to who you are, and then let's build up to the 18 Summers and the process and some of those things.
Yeah, I appreciate the intro. It's good to see you again, Whitney. Obviously, we've crossed paths through many of close relationships, but never directly. So it's nice that we finally connected. And I'm absolutely honored that the family message resonated with you and a lot of the people you work with. And really, kind of in our background world, I started as a real estate investor 24 years ago. And real estate investing was a major part of my life, but rolled into real estate investing. I started basically what I'd call like a family wealth project. I tell a lot of my story in the book, but I just was meeting a lot of people at a young age that were successful in business and failures at home. And that kind of terrified me. And it's not what I wanted to be. And today I'm a father of 5, ranging from 5 months to 18. So, we have quite a gamut. Really like to be involved in their lives. I believe there's no perfect family out there. So I never go from a point of perfection, but we figured out some pretty good ways, Whitney, as you've seen, to simplify family life and bridge our imperfections. And that's what really my career has been about. It's about real estate investments and family education for entrepreneurs.
Love that. You talked about you've met many people ultimately who were successful potentially in business, right? But man, they're failing at home. I think we've all seen that. And unfortunately, it's just not talked about enough. I wanted to mention right away too, again, your book, it's right on the shelf behind me if you're watching this on YouTube, with the family board meeting. It's a quick read. And I encourage you, actually, I'm going to gift it to anybody that wants it, that's listening. I'm going to gift them the book. And I'm going to tell you how to do that later in the show, how to let us know that you would like to have it, because I feel that strongly as well about the message that Jim has and he lays out in this book. But well, Jim, tell us, a lot of things have come from that. I guess give us a few of before we do that, dive into just a minute or two about your real estate business as well. You're a successful entrepreneur. And so the listeners understand, hey, you're a busy professional also, right? You have lived this and have implemented, these things you're going to talk about today as well.
Yeah, the family education business was spawned out of my real estate investment company because I wanted to make sure that I was holding myself accountable. And there wasn't a lot out there to support investors, entrepreneurs with family life. Not that I could see that. That wasn't a encyclopedia-sized book of confusing terms. And I wanted to try to simplify that. But real estate side, I started doing foreclosures in California almost 25 years ago now. It doesn't even sound real to say that, but HUD foreclosures, left California for, I felt, better waters of Florida, and did bulk foreclosures, after the '08 meltdown, and then switched to build to rent about 7-8 years ago. The deals really weren't there. My now building partner and I had done a lot of deals back and forth together. He was a builder. And we said, what if we could build investment property for ourselves and investors? So now we're probably the largest build to rent venture in the state of Florida right now, or one of them, building in 15 different markets, focusing on single family, duplex, and quad, smaller units for investors like people who are looking to be in Florida, can't necessarily be here, but want a simpler system and want to avoid that heavy maintenance, repairs, turnovers that older properties sometimes can give you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that none of that happens by accident, right? You're building a business and scaling like that, and your family, a successful family doesn't happen by accident either. So, but I want to jump into that, this 18 summers process and figure out what that is all about.
Sure. Well, 18 summers came from a mentor of mine, Whitney, years and years ago. I was doing one of my first family talks. It was on a big entrepreneur stage. I was really nervous. He was a great speaking coach, 70 years old, great shape. And I'm sharing my stuff with him. He's coaching me. And he just stopped in the middle of me and said, man, this is really important. Not a lot of people are talking about this. And he said, I want to tell you something, Jim, as a friend now, not as a coach. You got 18 summers to really make an impact. He said, my daughters are grown now. They're still my daughters, but it's different. I'm telling you, those first 18 years can be magic. And if you do them right, then they're going to come back for more. And I started to come across these statistics. There was a stat that showed the average person will spend almost 85% of the quality time they ever have with their children by the end of the 18th summer. And that makes sense when you think about it. They're going off to other endeavors, college, careers, and let's face it, my 18-year-old doesn't hang out with me as much as my 5-year-old does. And so the years are not all equal. And that really gave me positive motivation. And my family story. We're a blended family of adopted and biological children. I adopted my 2 oldest sons at 7 and 5. So when I heard that quote, Whitney, think about it. I was like, holy cow, I only have 11 summers left. I only have 13 left. It doesn't sound like that much. And what it does is it really does put your family on the front burner and realize that the old advice of put your head down, do your business for the next 5 to 10 years and your family will understand. I think that's terrible advice. And I don't think it has to be that way if you set some simple rhythms and strategies in your home life that will support your business and your personal life. And that's what I'm sure we'll talk about today and the book came up with.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I was sharing with Jim. I will go ahead and share too before I forget. I did not plan it this way, but to one of my team members just this morning, we have a Slack channel that's called Fun Weekend Recaps. And this team member took their daughter out for a board meeting and they went camping. And so the husband took the boys out and she took one child and had this one-on-one time that we're going to talk about today. And so it's been incredible to see how that's affecting some of our team members and my children as well. And I'll share about that as well as we move forward in the conversation of what's happened since I've done this with my boys already. So Jim, let's jump into that. I love how it's just so, you make it sound so simple, right? Or not so simple, but like just thinking through 18 summers. You only have the 18 summers. And I think when you think about it like that, it helps you to figure out or to be serious about the time that you have, right?
Yeah. Yeah, more intentionality is so key on anything. If you want to learn real estate investing, you want to learn crypto investing, you want to learn, family, you got to study it. You have to. And I really got serious about studying some rhythms and some things that worked. And that's where it came about. And I thought, wow, my family by far is my most important key team members, clients, investors. I better treat them like ones. And some people think that sounds very artificial or unemotional. It's actually the opposite when you put them in that forefront. So when I came up with the strategy, and my sons were 7 and 5, I wanted to make sure I was spending time with them. I was running this real estate investment company that was doing well again, but almost, went belly up in '08, like most of us came close to in those tough times. But I wanted to make sure I was there for them. So that first Christmas together, Whitney, I gave them quality time coupons. And that's where the board meeting strategy was founded. I said, look, guys, every quarter I'm going to spend a day with you. And they're like, okay, great. What's a quarter? So I said, every 90 days, you're going to cash this in. And my wife and I made up the rules. I said, it's just going to be me and you. My phone's off for the day. And I want you to really put together a fun day. And I'm going to go all in. And we're just going to spend time together. And that was the whole strategy. And the results I got, as I talk about in the book, my oldest, he had some trouble. My wife, love her to pieces. She was married young to a high school boyfriend just out of college, ended up being a very difficult situation, alcohol abuse, stood up for herself, divorced, and got full custody of these 2 young boys. And I met them a few years later. And my oldest had some challenges, some trust issues. When I first came into his life, he was close to failing, and he was put on the spectrum for night terror. I'm sorry, not for night terrors, for autism, and then having night terrors every night. That was really serious. And medication and therapy are important, but sometimes I think we just need to be there and feel loved and appreciated. And these days that I had that first year with my oldest son, and a lot of people have read this in the book, were absolutely magic. They were just pinnacle to this turn and trajectory of his life changing. He went from failing to getting the most improved student of the 3rd grade. They retracted the diagnosis of autism, which is not very often. And his night terrors were gone, and with the cool thing is I'd give up my entire real estate portfolio for those results, but I didn't have to. And I don't think people out there have to, but the principles that we'll share today, they work. They are potent. They are effective, and they can be used over and over to see real results.
Love that. I appreciate just you being so transparent about it and sharing a real story. I mean, that's right at home, right? About your son. And I love the outcome, of course. And so I hope that motivates the listener as well. It did me. So let's jump into some of those rhythms that you talked about, and how to simplify some of that. It can seem difficult, right? As busy, quote, right? As many of us seem to be, but help us simplify some of those rhythms. What does that look like?
Yeah. So before we go into the rhythm, I'll just remind you this one thing: that which we schedule gets done. If you do not schedule quality time with your family, it's not going to happen. We're all busy. We're all getting trampled over. You might not be able to get the babysitter. They might have this sport or this happening. You got to schedule the time with your spouse, with your children. And when you schedule it, the odds of success go up just tremendously. And when you don't, the odds of failure go up tremendously as well. And so once you schedule, you want to put some principles into effect. The first principle, Whitney, that I know you've heard me talk about and I talk about in the book is the one-to-one principle. If people stop listening after this, I know you don't want them to, but if they do and they just hear this one thing, they've gotten something that is so overlooked, yet so important and potent for results. I can't even tell you. And that's getting one-on-one with your family members. You got to separate the parts to strengthen the whole. One-on-one time puts the magnifying glass on the relationship in a positive way, takes away distraction, takes away, sibling rivalry, all of that. And that is such a needed thing. And most of the breakthroughs, most of the deep conversations I've had with my wife and with my children have been one-on-one. But that doesn't always happen. I mean, look, we're a family of 5. If I don't schedule it, it's not going to happen, and big family gatherings are great. I come from an Irish Catholic family, which means I have like 7,000 cousins, right? And those big things are great. But it's one-on-one time when you have the deeper conversations, when you have the chance to really connect. But the fact that we're not intentional in setting that up, it rarely happens.
Love that. I have seen this as well. Personally, my wife and I have seen this, just the importance of being one-on-one. Even before reading your book, my wife and I were trying to have time just one-on-one with the children. And then I love the intentionality behind these principles that you lay out. That's helped us in such a big way. But the magnifying glass in the relationship and putting away the rivalry, between the children, right? We can see how different they are when they're one-on-one versus together, right? We've all seen that as parents. Appreciate that. Well, let's jump on into some rhythms too.
And as you hit on with that, the one-on-one time is people say, I want to better support my child. I want them to be an individual, right? We want individuality for them. Well, one-on-one time is one of the best ways to foster that. And when you do that, it brings it out. So every quarter, like I talk about in the book, I have a quote unquote board meeting with each one of my children, and that is, what is a board meeting? For entrepreneurial companies, it's when you regroup, assess where you're at, look ahead to the next 90 days, right? That's what a board meeting, I think, should be. I do the same thing with my children. So every 90 days, I'm scheduling a half day with each one of my kids, just us, one-on-one. And that is one of the most important things to do with the relationship. These days, each quarter, tie together our relationship. They make the time in between more succinct, more below the surface, and it's absolutely key. To give a side note, which this isn't in the book, but I think you may have heard me talk about, I do a date night with my wife every week, Wednesday, 5:30 to 8:30. Don't ask me to be on an investor call, a podcast. And that's my beat of the drum, one-on-one with my wife. Even with 5 kids, yes, that's the time that we continue dating. That's ours. And it's when so many things can just be, you need those pressure valves to pull things out. When people don't do date night with their spouse and they don't pick the same day, same time, and just go for it, man, it can make or break a relationship. People overlook the simplicity and power of a date night kept every week. It's done wonders for my marriage. For my children, again, I'm going to look to do a day a quarter. It's a very special day for them. And not only are we going to be one-on-one with, but the other thing is we got to do intermittent tech fasting. This is something that I talk about pretty deeply in the book as well. If I've learned anything, is you got to disconnect to reconnect. The pride of entrepreneurs and real estate investors are always available. That's not always a good thing. You need times of complete and total unavailability to be fully engaged with your loved ones. And if not, you'll always be that half in, that paying attention where, that time, I'll be the guilty one where one of your children or your wife is trying to talk to you and you act like you heard them and you give this really terrible, nonsensible answer and you think you just got away with something. You're not fooling anyone but yourself. I've done that way too many times to count with me, and it can really start to wear on the relationship. And I'll tell you why. So my daughter, Maggie, I was coming home from work. It was about 2 years ago. She was about 5. She invites me to go on the trampoline. We have a trampoline. It's one of our fun things to do. And normally when I get home, my phone is off for about 2 hours. Around dinner time, we can talk about the dinner time challenge, but 5:30 to 7:30, 6 to 8, my phone's normally off. So she's inviting me on the trampoline and I forgot to leave my phone in my computer bag or in my car. That's normally where I lose it, right? So I'm getting on the trampoline and I hear that dreaded zzz, zzz, zzz. Now, you right there, you just nodded and said, oh yeah, that noise. Now, you don't even know what it says, but your brain goes into 10 different directions, right? And all of a sudden, I pull it out. And what happened? Someone messed up such a simple detail on a closing that was supposed to be happening that end of day. It just messed the whole thing up. It wasn't going to happen. There's all this fury. So where am I now? I'm on the trampoline. I'm swearing under my breath. I'm working out the thing. I'm not really on the trampoline with my daughter. I'm fully engaged in this thing that really was 5:30. There's nothing could be done. Title company was closed. We're talking next day. But Whitney, my daughter looked at me and she goes, Daddy, why are you so mad at me? And I was like, whoa. Now, I didn't even realize, because we start to wear what we're thinking on our face, right? So I probably had a scowl, muttering. And so there I was thinking that I'm being a good dad. I'm on the trampoline, look at me, but I wasn't there. And I actually put my daughter in a position where she thought that I was furious at her for maybe daddy doesn't like to play with me. Maybe he doesn't. And this happens so many times in marriages and in child-parent relationships. And that's why I'm the last person to take away technology. Hey, you and I wouldn't have these great conversations. We wouldn't do this, so don't move to a survival ranch. But just like if you've heard of intermittent fasting, have you heard of intermittent fasting, Whit?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're in good shape. You probably do it some. You're not giving up eating. You're just saying, I'm only going to eat between this time and this time intentionally. And what does that do? It does weight maintenance, good for muscle, good for organ recovery. I believe the same thing happens when we start to look at our electronics the same way. If we'll do some intermittent tuck fasting. So like on date night with every Wednesday, 5:30 to 8:30, my phone is not invited anymore. It was invited in the beginning. How do you think that went when I'm taking a text? I mean, how rude of me to do to my beautiful wife.
You feel it vibrating in your pocket, right? You're distracted.
And once like you don't even look at it, but now you've just gone to 5 different scenarios that you got to fix, right? It's entrepreneurialness. So it's not invited. These half days with my kids, it's not invited. Now with teens, I've set that example now. So they don't even ask to bring their phone. I'm starting first. It's funny with parents where they're like, oh man, my teen, they're always on their phone. Then you see them turn to the side, they're quickly shooting a text or responding to a Facebook thread or something. It's like, we got to have the trickle down here. We got to start. Right. But, on these board meetings, my phone's not invited, and then I do this thing end of day. I'll jump over to this dinner time challenge. During the pandemic, people were getting overloaded with tech. They were watching the news. So we tried to go to some simple values, and we said, look, what if you could turn off the phone altogether and the laptops and the TV for 1 hour a day, just 1 hour a day? And we started to put our things to that. At first it feels weird. You're going, man, what are we going to say to each other? What are we going to do? And the kids are like, well, I'm going to miss Instagram. I'm like, for an hour, but when you do this, what happened with us, it slows things down. You start to get outside more. We started to plan more adventures. That's one of our big core values. We're planning more adventures. We realized that, look, if even my teens, if they read a Instagram post of someone they didn't really like, well, they're going to probably be a little rigid and a little frustrated and cross with us, the same way I was with Maggie on the trampoline. So we took these times out. And I think it's really important to have these downtimes. And we called it the dinner time challenge. If you pick an hour around dinner time, you're going to see more conversation open up. You're going to see more of a decompression, because nothing breaks up the flow of a conversation than one person holding their phone up in front of their face, right? And pretending like they're in it. And I think it fosters that real connection, because you and I are growing up in a different time, Whitney. 60 years ago, there was this study. This is really cool. 60 years ago, the average dinner time was 90 minutes. I mean, that just sounds crazy, right? You're like, wow, 90 minutes. It was long, but guess how much it is today?
12.
You're the first person who got just under 12 minutes.
Really?
Yes, you got it right. I've never had anyone get it right. You got a gold star here. Gold star for that. But yeah, 12 minutes. So we've shortened our connection points rushing off to something. And really, the more I've interviewed, the more family masterminds I've done, what are we rushing off to? It's normally a text that can wait, an email that doesn't have to be answered right now, or a social media thread that could probably wait forever, or be thumbs up, later in your own time. So intermittent tech fasting is something that I use for my date night with my wife, the board meeting that the book talks about, and even on a daily basis when I'm having that dinner time challenge where I want to be completely focused. I've earned that reward to be just with my family for at least an hour or even 2 hours, but start with 1 hour. That's a really powerful thing to do.
Start with 1 hour. Start with something, right? I love the intermittent tech fasting and relating that to even, food. Most people have heard of fasting, like you talked about, and thinking through, hey, it's not unaccomplishable, right? It is something you can start to do, and just the benefit of that. Well, a couple of quick questions though. And also I want to thank the listeners as well for being with us. And we're going to do a few segments here with Jim to really dive into some of these techniques so you can take these home today and put them in place. So I love the actionable things that Jim's going to bring today and that he's already laid out. So, but a couple quick things, Jim, childcare. You talk about like date night once a week for us, especially getting the business started when it was like, 80, 100 hours a week, every week, it's difficult. Like an hour time, what I found for my wife and I, we couldn't really have a date night every week. However, we created kind of the same time at like 5 a.m. And so it was like 5 to 7 a.m, a few mornings a week. There was like still time for us to connect. And that was crucial for us during that time. And then it was like, well, once, the work amount slowed down a little bit and I had more manageable time, it was childcare, right? Well, how do we find childcare? And we live in a place away from family, and we did find it, but I had to be very intentional on pushing to find this right person, right? That we could trust with this amount of time. And now we have a date night every 2 weeks. So I'm not hardly at every week yet. Maybe we'll strive to that.
Whitney, bi-weekly is great. Again, I've gone in some big audiences, some we've been with together. And I say, how many of you have a meeting with your CFO every week? You could name the day and time. 90% of the room's hands go up. How many have a sales meeting? Hand goes up. I said, how many of you have a day and time meeting with dating your spouse? Less than 10% of the room's arm goes up. And so a lot of people say, oh, last time I went on a date, I don't know, 8 months ago. A lot can happen in 8 months. You keep that rhythm of every week, every other week. Man, this decompresses things that could become, miscommunications. Who know? It's just, I'm not allowed to touch any paperwork because I'm going to lose it. It's going to be crumpled up in the back of my car, right? So I'm always trying to do things to hedge for victory. I want to love my family and I have tendencies to mess up times. So the fact that it's the same bat time, same bat channel every Wednesday, 5:30 to 8:30, what got easier was childcare. Because we have a nanny house manager that comes in part-time and helps. We know it's in our schedule. Hey, don't come in late on Wednesday because we're going to go on date night. So what I've found is we're in such a hurry that if we're always like, oh, we got to do date, not this week, but next week. Should we pick Thursday or maybe Friday? Let's do it Saturday. There's so many moving parts. Oh no, they have this on this and they have that on that. When you pick that one day, it really does start an easier effect to get childcare, to get support because you're constant. And you can even get someone possibly in the rotation for every other week, every other Friday, every other Wednesday, every Wednesday like we do. So keeping that same day might actually simplify for you.
Jim, thank you so much for your time today and sharing many key things that are going to change the way we do family, change our focus. And I love the tech fasting. And man, we wear what we're thinking on our face. I mean, you went into date nights and the teen masterminds, the Tuesday night rhythm of that. And really the many rhythms that you and your family go through. I mean, from planning experiences to the dinner time challenge, man, turn that phone off, right? And the overnight with your wife once per quarter, your date night, weekly date night. I would encourage the listener too, if maybe you can't do it weekly, like myself, we do it every other week, but do something, right? Have it on the calendar, have it scheduled so you do it, right? And so even the twice a year of you going away by yourself, the holiday traditions, those things, I hope the listener, man, will you think about these things that Jim has laid out today and just try to implement one or two things, maybe even this month, right? Before this month is out, when you hear this, I hope that you'll take action on what Jim has laid out. It's more important than your business success, right? Is that your family is successful, your family unit. We claim we're doing all of this for our family, but man, they pay the ultimate sacrifice. I've seen this firsthand over the last couple months. I've done the family board meeting with my boys, both boys now, and it's incredible the things that they have shared right during these meetings that I would not have known otherwise. Just creating the space to ask a few simple questions. And Jim lays out that process even in more detail in his book, The Family Board Meeting. Remember, if you will email us at info@lifebridgecapital.com, put in the subject line, The Family Board Meeting, and give us your address, and we will send you. I want to buy you, personally pay for you a copy of this book because I know it's going to transform your family. And I personally know and believe that it's more important than your business success is that your family is successful. Have a blessed day. Please leave a rating, written review. Please subscribe. I hope you're back with us again tomorrow. Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing in real estate today.